Shulman joins us on the line. He is the founder of a very popular Gator website in all kinds of weather. Neil, what's going on, man?
Not much. Just getting ready for Thanksgiving. How you doing?
Doing well, man. Great to have you on. Your assessment of Jeremy Foley and the vote of support that he's getting right now, that Muschamp's getting from team president Bernie Machen and from Will Muschamp.
Well, I mean, I do see where Jeremy Foley is coming from. There are a lot of injuries. There was the 11-2 record last season. And, he does recruit very well, and usually this is a team that goes out and they play very hard for a coach. And I think that's something lots of people take for granted, because sometimes a team, sees that their record is 4-6. They're going to go out there on the field. They're just going to play dead. They're not going to, they're not going to try as hard as they possibly can. And there's something about Will Muschamp that his players want to go out there and go through a brick wall for him, or at least give it their best shot. And not every coach that Jeremy Foley was looking for when he hired Muschamp had that. Muschamp did. So he took him, and I think he still sees that in him. So that's why I think he's getting the vote of confidence from him.
Yeah, you know what, though? It's one thing to get a vote of confidence. It's another thing to completely embarrass and humiliate a fan base. I think Gator fans could have accepted a somewhat disappointing 8-4 season. A season the likes of which Georgia's having. Trust me, in Athens, Neil, they're disappointed. But they're not embarrassed, and they're not humiliated. And for the most part, Georgia was in every game it played this season. Given the fact that Florida had top 10 expectations, and given the fact that they averaged top 5 in recruiting the last 4 years, this to me is unacceptable, injuries or not.
Oh, I agree 100%. I mean, there are some cardinal sins that you just cannot commit as a head coach, and losing to not just any FCS team. This isn't a team that is 6-4 in the FCS. They are just mediocre in their lower division. It's not even like this is a team that dominates in their lower level. They're just mediocre. They're okay. That's just not even good. And to lose to a team of that caliber is completely unacceptable, as is losing at home to Vanderbilt, as is losing 3 in a row to Georgia, and as is giving up almost a quarter of a mile's worth of rushing yards to any team, let alone set FCS team. I'm just telling you why Jeremy Foley is keeping him. I don't agree with him at all.
Yeah, I don't agree with the decision at all, and you're wondering just how long of a leash Will Muschamp has moving forward here. If he's 1,000% sure, Jeremy Foley that is, that Muschamp's the right guy, are we going to hear that he was wrong? Will he admit that he's wrong if and when Florida is, say, 3-3 at some point next year? Because the schedule next year, if you've seen it, Alabama in Tuscaloosa, LSU's always there, FSU's always there, Missouri's on the schedule. I mean, come on. It is absolutely brutal the way it looks next year for the Gators. So it looks like things might get worse before they get better. And, the one present under the tree was going to be, wondering who our next head coach is going to be. That being able to unwrap a new coach for Christmas this year. And to be deprived of that, Neil, I think is a shame.
It is. And there are, again, the last time we talked, I pointed out some things that Muschamp did wrong that he's still doing. I'm not just someone who wants Muschamp fired because of embarrassing losses. Admittedly, they're embarrassing to Vanderbilt and Georgia Southern, but there are issues within those losses. A lot of people say, oh, that's unacceptable. You can't lose to Vanderbilt, period. Well, at first, I was calm and patient, and I was pointing out from a football standpoint what was going on that couldn't happen, the turnovers. I mean, even last year, in the game against Georgia, everyone was talking about Muschamp in 2012 being a game away from being in the national championship. Well, there's a reason why the Gators weren't actually in the championship game, because they picked the biggest game of the year and the biggest stage to turn it over 6 times and commit 10 penalties. And this year, they're losing a lot of games they shouldn't, such as Vanderbilt, 4 turnovers in that game, 11 penalties in that game. 11 penalties in that game. They lost to Missouri on the road, 3 turnovers in that game. They turned it over 4 times against Tennessee. And I could go on and on and on, but I mean, this is the end of Muschamp's third year. 3 years is not 1 year. It is a good enough time and a long enough sample size to judge a coach by. And in that sample size, throughout it, there have been these problems that aren't going away. So Florida fans are asking, well, when are we supposed to believe they're ever going to get fixed? That's my question. If you can't get this stuff fixed in 3 years, how much longer am I supposed to give you?
Exactly.
And that's why, I don't think he should be back as the head coach.
Neil Shulman, founder of AnAllKindsOfWeather.com, a popular Gator slogan, a popular Gator site, joining us here on Thanksgiving Eve, Out of Bounds with Marc Ryan and Company, Sports Radio 98.7 The Fan. Okay, Neil, can you offer me anything at all as to how Florida has a chance in this rivalry game? Because I'm reaching, man. I'm grasping at straws. It's our job in radio to make people excited about games sometimes that you're not excited about. And man, on this game, I've got nothing.
Well, if this were not a rivalry, I would say it's possible that FSU might overlook this. But I'm sorry, it is a rivalry. It is historically one of the biggest rivalries, or at least over the last 20 years, one of the biggest rivalries in all of football. But if Florida's going to win this game, and this sounds a little strange because of the way that Jameis Winston is able to escape pressure, if Florida is able to harass Jameis Winston, they have a chance. That's what they have to do. And I realize that Clemson tried that. Brent Venables, their defensive coordinator, was sending 6, 7, sometimes 8 guys, stacking the box and daring Winston to beat them, and he did. But Florida's alternative is to sit back and play some coverage, which apparently Lucas Purifoy has forgotten how to do. And without Marcus Roberson back there, I don't see how Florida can, give Winston that kind of time. So I think that if Florida gets pressure on Winston, the kind of pressure that Clemson tried to get on him and could not get, there's a chance. But I think that Florida is going to try to do that. They're going to live and die by it. But they're going to need help anyway. Even if they get pressure on him and they give him a hard time, they're going to need the kind of cheap touchdown that they've got in the last few years against them. And, back in 2010, there was a big kick return by Andre DeBose, set up a cheap touchdown. Then 2011, there was the fumble deep in their own territory. Florida scored a touchdown off of that to Quentin Dunbar. So that's what they need. They need a little help from FSU, and they need to harass Winston and make him make mistakes.
Neil, the criticism of Florida fans right now, really not filling the student side. We were told it was half full against Georgia Southern, about 2/3 full against Vanderbilt. Is that criticism fair, or is it unjustified based on the team's performance?
I think it's totally unfair. In order to go to a Florida Gator football game, there's a lot of money involved. There's the money for a ticket, and that's just if you're in Gainesville. If you live in, say, Orlando or Jacksonville or Atlanta or Miami or anywhere else, you have to pay for your transportation to get there. I'm not just talking student section here. The entire swamp was empty for that game against Georgia Southern. So there's a lot of money involved. I'll talk about the students in a second, but for anybody involved, it's a lot of money. And this is a Gator team that is anything but fun, and fun is the reason you go to these games and spend the type of money in the first place. You want to have a good time. You want to enjoy what you're paying money for. And, in the case of the students, it's double that. College is the best time of your life. And I can tell you that because I'm in college right now. It's a lot of fun. It's the best years of your life. It's the best years of my life so far. And I can tell you from being here that it's the most fun that those kids are having is going to football games, but it is still a time commitment, and there is still some money involved. And they don't want to spend that money and that time on a team that commits turnovers and penalties like no other team in the country, when they could be, just hanging out at a friend's house, maybe watching some football on TV, playing ping pong or something. There are better ways to spend your time right now and your money than to go to the swamp and watch this.
Yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree. And if I was a student still at Florida, Neil, I don't think I would be going to the games either. And you can call me a fair weather fan, and I would tell you, give me a better product, and I'll be there. My time is valuable. My discretionary income is valuable. And if you are not going to give me a good product, you're not going to get my butt in the seats. Neil Shulman is the founder of a popular Gator website in allkindsofweather.com. Neil, thanks so much for the time. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours.
Thanks for having me on. Happy Thanksgiving to you guys, too.
You got it, yeah.